Hey, how's it going, guys? Jackson here with Toasty DIY, and today we're going to be showing you all how to do your basic maintenance on a John Deere Z735M. So this guide really covers almost every single John Deere mower there is, especially if you have a Briggs and Stratton one. I've had a couple of these zero turns that were about 10 years older and had almost the exact same setup as this, so they've done a really good job at keeping everything consistent and also just very easy to work on. So let's go ahead and give it a wipe down. We'll go ahead and do the air filter. Yeah, so obviously right now is a great time to kind of inspect stuff too. You know, if you see anything that needs to be replacing. I already did see one thing that I'm sure is gonna be pretty common. This is a 2022, so it's almost brand new at the time of recording this video, just a year old. And this hose right here is almost completely dry rotted through. It's coming off of the, I believe it'd be, yeah, it's the valve cover. So I assume it's some type of PCV. All right, so anyways, here's our air filter. It's like a cartridge style. So you're basically going to lift up and out. It's very simple. Now there is quite a bit of little debris in here, nothing too bad, but it's crazy how dusty this area is. So I'm gonna do the best I can to kind of wipe. And I am gonna be pretty much using all like either John Deere OEM parts or, you know, Briggs and Stratton OEM parts. IU14395. Here's the filter, that is an IU14496. All right, so we just slide this over the filter. It's interesting that it uses both. So we're just gonna slide that over. So now we're just gonna, basically the front goes on and then it just slides down just like that. Might be a little bit weird to get to, but since mine's new, it's pretty easy to pull off. As far as the socket size, it looks like it's gonna be a 5/16, which is a pretty standard spark plug socket these days. Let's find out. 5/16 it is. So I'm just using a 5/16 swivel socket. But the actual electrode and everything itself looks really good. So one of the things that I like to do, and this is just like a common mechanic practice if they know what they're doing, a little bit of dielectric tune-up grease. It's basically like, it kind of helps displace water, and it also makes it to where your boots and other electronics will come off and come undone a lot easier. Yeah, I'm pretty comfortable saying, I mean, yeah, these seem to be pre-gapped enough. It doesn't necessarily have to be perfect, but if you would like to get out a gapping gauge, that's definitely a good idea, especially if you don't buy the, you know, the ones that they recommend from the factory. As always, the spark plugs, get them in hand tight first. The last thing you want to do is cross thread your spark plug in there, because then you're going to be doing engine work that you don't want to do. Yeah, I'd say about a half a turn from once it's hand tight. You'll feel it start to get tighter and a little bit tighter. You got to be really careful, because you don't want to leave a spark plug loose, because then you're going to be losing compression, but you really don't want to tighten it down too much, because that's how you strip threads out. All right, so next up is fuel filter. This one's a little bit harder to get to, not too bad. Now, since we did just start this, we're definitely gonna have some residual fuel that'll come out, but that's not a big deal. One thing you can do if you really wanna be safe and try to save your paint from getting fuel on it, which will definitely kind of eat away at it, is put a paper towel underneath it, or just something to, you know, soak up the fuel. All right, not bad. Now, when you install your new fuel filter, it is directional. Pretty much all fuel filters are going to be directional, so they're gonna have a little arrow on them. And this John Deere fuel filter is the AM116304. All right, so we're gonna find our arrow, and as you can see, it's pointing up, and the fuel is gonna go up towards the engine. So I'm gonna do the bottom one first, because that one's definitely a little bit harder. well, that was not too bad. So now we have done all of the routine maintenance stuff besides our oil change, which the oil change is obviously going to be one of the most common things that you need to do on one of these. Really just, I mean, most equipment, you know, anything that has an engine. So I'm gonna try this. So basically you're gonna push down on this, and now we have this, you know, pretty free. Move the camera back a little bit so you guys can see. And this one's definitely better than the last John Deere. The last John Deere, you got like no length with this hose. I don't know why, but they made it like extremely short. And then one other thing we're probably gonna have to do is take the oil cap off to get the oil flowing a little bit quicker. Just kind of take it off and just rest it there. And I don't know if you guys can see, but we have a nice little steady trickle, and yeah, emphasis on the trickle. Now the oil we're gonna be using is actually John Deere branded. It's Turf Guard SAE 10W30. Yeah, so one thing I wanna show you guys while we have the oil draining. So this is the guide for the Z720E, Z730M, 735, 735M, and the Z740. Now I want you guys to keep in mind, this is going to be very, very universal with like any brand of mower really. The hours and the like the fluids are gonna kind of vary, but other than that, I mean, it's all very basic. One thing that's always good to do is actually check your capacities. Make sure that you're putting the right amount of stuff that they call for. So for the hydrostats, you're gonna need 5.4 quarts with the filters. Now, the engine oil with filter, that basically means with the engine full of oil, we're looking at about 2 to 2.2 quarts. All right, now one of the things I'm gonna go ahead and do while we have that going over there is I'm gonna go ahead and do the oil filter. So I doubt this thing's gonna be, yeah, probably not hand tight. All right, so that size did not work, so we're gonna try, oh yeah, that worked really good. A little too good. All right, so now that we got it loose enough to where we can do it by hand, I'm really putting this paper towel down here. Because yeah, this part sadly gets pretty messy. It's kind of hard to avoid it. Obviously, starting the oil change definitely helps. So that there's not quite as much oil in there. So before I even move that paper towel from underneath, I'm gonna go ahead and put our new oil filter on. Now make sure that your old oil filter gasket came off with it. I can see a nice clean bare aluminum. Here's our new oil filter, and here's the part number. It's the AM125424 lowercase c. I'm gonna go ahead, and you can obviously use some brake part cleaner if you want, but all right, so we're still just waiting on the oil to finish draining. So I'm gonna show you guys how to lubricate the deck spindles. And ideally you want these to really get on there and seal. Screwdriver, a flathead, just kind of push it down because they might have just gotten a little bit seized up. All right, our oil is finally down to just a tiny little drop every minute or two. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull the oil tube back up. Go ahead and wipe off any residual oil from parts that probably got some oil spilled on them. It's an easy oil change system. That doesn't mean that it's clean. So we're gonna go ahead and we'll go ahead and put this cap back on before we put that back up there. Cap on, nice and tight. Go ahead and put that up there. One thing I will be doing is definitely getting a better grease gun because yeah, trying to grease those fittings did not go amazing. So I'm gonna go ahead and move the camera. You guys can see it. I got some jugs open here. Once again, 10W30. Go ahead and just pull this dipstick all the way out, and we're just gonna go ahead and put 2 jugs in there. Try to make sure that your area where you're pouring the oil is relatively clean. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and put the dipstick back in, and I'm not even gonna bother checking the level yet, because as long as you're using like an OEM manual, you should be right about where you need to be. Just if anything, you might be a little bit low. So we're gonna go ahead and start the mower, which like I said, could take us a couple tries. rag to check our oil. So we're gonna go ahead and pull the dipstick up. It's gonna have oil just all over it since the engine was just running. Go ahead and make sure it's nice and clean, easy to read. Put it, dipstick all the way back on, twist it, pull it out nice and carefully. And yep, I'm pretty happy with that level. So that was, I ended up just doing 2 quarts, and that put us above the full mark. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Hopefully you guys learned a thing or two from it, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.